have memories. I'm thinking about it now. Like, oh yeah, I remember this one Halloween, the sky was orange, and it just, these like this phenomenology of light and place. And given that Southern California has like these really specific ways that light enters the atmosphere and plays with our architecture, which is so vastly diverse.
Yeah.
That photography just kind of became the tool when I was in community college that, oh God, this is how I can access that, that sensitivity that I have, that I just, people are inclined to certain things. And that's what I think about when I was a kid in Orange County, was like, oh yeah, I had these feelings of, really paying attention to how the environment felt.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Jackie Castillo. Jackie, you have been shouted out on this podcast before. That's actually, I first heard your name or became fully aware of you. And then I was like, oh, Dakota likes her and is friends with her. Let me go find who this is. And then I was like, oh, I'm already following her. I liked some of the stuff. So that's your lore on this podcast. Not to, hype you up too much. So where are you from originally?
I was born and grew up in Orange County.
Oh, okay. So you're a Californian.
I'm a suburban girl.
Yeah. How's that?
I
was watching a thing. I watched this podcast called This Age Great, and they were doing Valley Girl. And that is such a traditional, internationally known kind of suburban lifestyle. I feel like Orange County is a little bit different.
It definitely is. Because, it's really weird. I feel like when people think about Orange County, they have these stereotypes about the county based, because of media, but also like, oh, it's Republican, but it's really strange. When I was growing up, I grew up in Santana, and like Santana is like a landing place for immigrants.
Yeah.
Right. And I grew up in a working class area. So
is Santana considered, is that when people talk about Santa Ana, for the people that don't know, when they talk about that place, the only thing I ever knew about it was that it's like, there's like ceramics, there's like a really big ceramics store or ceramic scene there. My mom took me to it and she was like, oh my God, this is like world renowned. So that's my understanding of it. I feel like when people are talking, they're like, isn't there like a Bixby Knolls, like, more closer to LA is more that Republican area? Is that a distinction that seems fair?
I'd say it's more like South Orange County, like south of Santana is Newport Beach, Laguna Beach.
Okay.
Southern Orange County, like that's where the affluence like skyrockets. Actually, there's some of the most expensive zip codes in the country.
Yeah.
But that's literally it's right next to Santana, like a working class area, Garden Grove, Westminster, Anaheim. Like Orange County is so diverse in many ways.
Yeah.
So growing up there was, I kind of grew up really close to home. Like my parents really didn't let my sister and I like roam around the neighborhood, So
really in the suburbs. Wow.
Yeah. Well, because,
it wasn't safe.
It was, sometimes, there's, some gang stuff would be happening in those areas. So, my parents were also really like, super just
smart. And like careful.
Yeah,
right?
just very careful.
Yeah.
But I grew up in this little house, close to this like private school modern day. This neighborhood though was like this little house with so much yard that I sort of got to create my own worlds and just like imagine and just play. Like that was such a vivid, and I have really vivid memories of being a kid. With all these siblings, I'm the youngest of 1, 2, 3, 5,
Oh.
6. There's 6 of us.
There's 6. Wow. There's 4 of us, and that's a lot to handle.
Yeah, and it's different dads for other my older siblings and like my sister and I. But
what's the span of generations like? Is it Gen Xers in there?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, my oldest sister, I think she's like in her 50s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said you were youngest?
I'm the youngest.
Wow.
Yeah. But the weird thing is that I spent a couple high school years in Newport Beach. Because my mom worked as like a caretaker and would sometimes live in these like folks' homes, like, sort of seeing the ends of their lives and really taking care of them. And, she thought it was a really good idea, which that people, they have good intentions. It's like a really good idea to like have me go to this high school in Newport Beach. Right. But going from like MacArthur Intermediate Middle School to Newport Beach, it's like everybody was white. Everybody had so much money. It was kind of my class awakening. Like well, actually, no.
You stepped into a John Hughes movie.
Kind of. Yeah. But I never really felt like, it was imposter syndrome the whole time, So
no, yeah.
It's kind of weird.
No, that there's definitely, that makes sense. I don't think that there is a school. This was a public school, right?
It was a public school.
That's so crazy that the discrepancy between rich public schools here, because in Miami, it's not but I've heard of that before, right? Like and then there's the ones that all the people that were famous. That's wild. So then where does art fit into all of this? And like so you were talking a little bit about play. Was art part of the play?
I would say
for signposting and for context for people that don't know you, how would you identify as an artist specifically? Like what kind of work do you make? Because you work in a photo lab, so I'm guessing that you studied photography, but I've seen some of your other stuff that you've done installations that are really beautiful and stuff like that. So like, what do you have a media or are you?
Yeah, I'm a film-based photographer.
Okay.
But currently, I make sculpture and installation using photography.
Okay.
Some, at the moment, really leaning into the sculpture a little bit more, and developing that.
But there is a photographic quality to some of the stuff that I've seen.
It's always based in the image.
Yeah, it references a lot. Like if especially the stuff with the ceiling tiles.
Oh yeah, the ICA show. Those sculptures came from stills of a film that I shot or a video that I shot.
When you say film-based photographer, you're not saying that you don't use digital. You're saying that you're more cinema-based.
No, I shoot film. I'm in analog photography. Yeah, all my work is based in analog.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a really there's such a huge difference.
Oh yeah. Are you? Is that black and white? Is it easy to still access like dark, like RC printing with color?
I don't output in the darkroom currently.
Okay.
Like I don't make prints. I shoot everything in film because for me it's shooting with film cameras. It's just it's about that limitation of how many images you can make while you are actively turning that switch on and being like, I'm making images right now.
Yeah.
And then, I sit with the images forever. Like for example, like this project, this work at the ICA I shot that video in like 2017. And sometimes, that waiting and just like sitting with photographs for me is actually a really important part of figuring out what's the meaning I'm trying to make here. And why did I shoot this? Why is this important? Why make photographs? And I need that time to sit with them and look at them and really understand how I want to activate them spatially. Because I've been making these sculptures using photographs to figure out ways to really slow people down to consider what they're looking at. obviously we are, engage with images constantly everywhere, but like, okay, we don't even pay attention to what we're looking at, but like, how do you slow people down? So for me, the answer has been activating them spatially, but also making, installations that address the architecture in the most provocative way.
Okay.
But also address the site, either the building itself, the neighborhood it's situated in, the city it's in. So yeah, I'd say the practice is really rooted in Southern California. Like I spent, I wasn't able to leave my house, when I was like a kid. But always, there's always these sensations that I was thinking, like I've so intensely felt the quality of the light in the backyard throughout the year. And I have memories. I'm thinking about it now. Like, oh yeah, I remember this one Halloween, the sky was orange and it just, these like this phenomenology of light and place. And given that Southern California has like these really specific ways that light enters the atmosphere and plays with our architecture, which is so vastly diverse.
Yeah.
That photography just kind of became the tool when I was in community college that, oh God, this is how I can access that, that sensitivity that I have, that I just, people are inclined to certain things. And that's what I think about when I was a kid in Orange County, was like, oh yeah, I had these feelings of, really paying attention to how the environment felt.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, when you talk about the light, especially when I first came to LA, I've said this on the podcast a million times, so maybe people are sick of hearing it, but it was surreal. It felt like the closest experience I can, have you seen Mulholland Falls, where the movie just kind of switches?
No, but I remember you talking about it.
Oh, okay. Well, the light, the idea of the light, like it's where movies are filmed, so it's the light that we grew up watching when I lived in Italy, and the light was different, or when I lived in Miami, which is dramatically differently. Yeah. And one of my pet peeves when people shoot in Miami and they try to make it look like LA. Like if I look back and I think of Bad Boys, it's a visually stunning movie, but I think that one of the best movies to do this is to like really get the way it looks is a terrible movie according to a lot of people, but Roadhouse, the new one with Jake Gyllenhaal, which I love, because it's like,
I have to watch it.
Yeah, it just makes me feel like, oh, the keys. That's funny. So but the quality of life can like elevate something like as trivial as that movie, which it's schlock, but I'm like, but the feeling of it is like, it soothes that like going. Yeah. I long for like Miami, and like just being on a bridge where you just see ocean, blue ocean. That's like where I'm from. So it's interesting to hear you kind of try to, because that is a quality that like, as someone that's not from here, the light here is very different. It's very, very specific to Southern California. And it's like what the light that everybody dreams of, because it goes out, like people are watching Baywatch and they're like, yo, that's California. Not that Baywatch captured the light, but, off of Pecs. Yeah. But, so like, tell me a little bit about where you're at now, having finished the show. Did you do a show at As Is LA?
I did.
Okay.
I had my first solo show there in 2021.
Okay. Oh, wow. That was like so lucky that I got that right.
Yeah.
Because that is a long time ago.
Yeah.
But you're talking about the photographic elements. It was the bricks, right? That stuff printed on them.
The first work I made, exhibiting at that gallery was called Gutting. And if you've been in that space, you walk in and it's that kind of funny room that has all these doors and thresholds. the front gallery before you go into like, you know, the main gallery space. But actually it was my friend Chris Reyes who, you know, sort of had a studio visit in my apartment at the time, which was my studio because I didn't have an apartment. Or sorry, I didn't have a studio. You know, that made that visit happen. And I had done something like that installation in my dining room that, you know, the owner of the gallery came to see, and they asked me like, oh, can you do something like that in at as is? And I was like, yeah, you know, I really love working with parameters. And, you know, I was like, can you give me the plans of the walls, you know? And I sort of made the site specific work using different images. But they were photographs of the gutting of a house, but really, you know, the point of view was, you know, you're very low, and the way the camera can sort of, you know, make objects feel much larger than they are, and the perspective, you know, really can transform an object. So gutting was the first project I did there. 2 years later, I did turning. Which was using, you know, was the photographic sculptures on the floor. And these 4 Pico Union House photographs that I accompanied with those sculptures, you know, using reclaimed material for some of the work.
So who were your like big people when you were in school, right? Like, because like, we kind of covered a little bit about the first moment that you realized, like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is the tool that can give me access. This is my access to what I want, right? What was there something that opened it up for you? Because you definitely talk a lot about art as from the perspective of a photographer, right? I studied photography. I ended up kind of falling into a more conceptual space, but I still think that I kind of think of materiality in that specific way. Like one, you know, the idea, I at one point I got frustrated that I was not a documentary style photographer. I was more, you know, even though I was trying to be that because I was studying that and I was really into it, you know, like I have the books and whatnot. What you are seemingly in your own realm, you know, you've kind of got off, but like when you were first starting out, like what were you kind of looking into? You know, what were you drawn to? Were obviously they showed you Gary Winogrand in school at some point, right? Like the big names, Lee Friedlander and all that. But like what, you know, for me, because I was in Miami, Thomas Demond was because there was I had access to that stuff, and that kind of opened a little bit up for me the idea that I didn't necessarily have to be a photographer. Not him in particular. There's Gursky, you know, who did a lot of digital stuff, you know, and he's got the iconic 99-cent store. Did you have a specific person that like kind of moved you? Do you think of yourself in any way conceptually as a conceptual person, or is it strictly like photography for you?
So I think like thinking about that first part of the question, was there like something? And I would actually say it was classic film. When I was in high school, this is even before I took a photography class, I was like very obsessed with like watching classic film. I would like take what? Like TC, like, you know, like George Cukor, like director, The Maltese Falcon was, I still remember like sitting in my bedroom as a junior, and this movie came on at like 11 p.m. and I was like, what is this? And I remember all the dust and all the grainy qualities of the film I was watching just really captivated me. There was something about the, you know, this capturing of a time and a place, the contrast, a kind of timelessness, even though obviously it's documenting a specific time, but I got so hooked, and I would like highlight the TCM like catalog that I ordered and like, this is what I want to watch this week. And it really made a huge impact on
You
What?
ordered a TCM catalog?
Yeah, dude, I was such a nerd in high school. I was like,
You didn't
I
just
need
get
to
the TV
know.
guide?
No, I was like, I need to find out what they're playing, like, you know, and like research like the directors and the actors that I liked. So I can
This
know
was
what I'm
before
going to
having
watch.
your iPhone right there.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
so much research and enterprisingness.
Yeah, thank God, the computer. You know, so, you know, when I went to community college, that's where I started. And I spent a long time at my community college before I transferred out. You know, I took up the film history class, but it was right after that, after my second semester in college, that I took a beginning film photography class, the darkroom class, to do my GE, to transfer into where the heck I was going to study, because I didn't know at the time. I thought I was going to study literature, and I took so many literature classes. But it was that class that really just, it like totally, you know, it changed my life, literally. But at the same time, I was taking this literary theory class where I was learning about semiotics, psychoanalysis, Marxism, all these different, you know, post-colonialism, all these different frameworks to understand culture and the world, power, how things are structured, how meaning is made. So having that framework, having this tool, photography, at the same time, I got, again, obsessed, you know, like I just fell into this mode of making and figuring out like I just wanted to make things, make photographs, make bodies of work. I made 4 bodies of work at my community college before I even transferred, you know, like this is the, so.
Were you comfortable with like I said, I was more of an artist using photography, and then I just kind of abandoned photography and started using other media. Have you always been like, did you have a phase where you were sort of not necessarily emulating, you know, like when you start off, you have your interests and you have the people that you like. Was there a direction? Because the thing about the movies, you said classical movies, but I until you started saying that, like the Maltese Falcon. So you weren't like, were you into like, what's on TCM? What is on TCM? It's not like, it's Fellini on there. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So all of that stuff. So you became like a film junkie. So that's where the culture starts.
Yeah, well, that's where the, you know, framing, where composition, you know, and I feel like that's why the images I make are so formal in many ways. That's where the language of, you know, making formal photographs came from. I think even before I made photographs, it sort of sunk into the way I interpreted space and art, like, you know, and I didn't grow up going to museums. I didn't grow up seeing art. It's like, that was the first sort of, I think.
To me, it's always amazing when people, because like my mom, when I was a kid, I lived in DC, and she used to always take me to like the National Gallery and all of that. And all of that was available. It was a huge privilege to grow up like that. And then when I lived in Rome, it was the same thing. Right. But like, so to me, it's almost like, it's interesting, the mind of an artist that wasn't necessarily like stimulated like that. You know, I'm so self-centered, I guess it's the word for this thought. It's that I'm like, how did my friends that live in Italy not become artists? You know, like it's so hard for me to see outside of my own artist experience, which is kind of why I do the podcast, but it's really fascinating. You live in a city that does have a lot of that though. And it seems like the film, I mean, obviously you see a lot of LA in this stuff. Have you ever watched, seems like you were going to say something, sorry. And then I'll ask, I'm not going to forget my question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about what you're saying. And, you know, even if you're in a city like, I mean, I wasn't in LA, but even if you're there, it doesn't necessarily mean you get exposed to those things. You know, it's really, I mean, I've spent so much time thinking about how your class really determines like who you get to be in life.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I mean,
you know,
I'm
it's like
definitely an example of that myself. Yeah.
I think we all are. Like, you know, my parents worked all the time. It's not like they
Yeah.
could like spend time. You know, my dad worked as a waiter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So weekends, I didn't spend time with my dad on the weekends. He was working,
Yeah.
right? Like during the day, like in the evening. So, you know, I think when this question of like art and when you become an artist, it's like, well, art really is like it's it's a sensitivity to things, and you don't, you know, I think that's one of the reasons why for this museum project I did, I wanted my dad to work with me on it because, you know, I watched him make things all my life. And he, even though, you know, he has a very like, you know, engineering mind, he's so creative in the way he solves problems and in ways that I can't as an artist. And I'm always questioned like, yeah, what is it? What does it mean to be an artist? Who gets to be an artist? What is art? Like, you know, it's like obviously really kind of silly and funny things, the way to put it. But, you know, it can be, oh my God, like, you know, what I remember being a kid and like arranging these blocks in a very specific way and just like doing it over and over and over again. You know, that's forming composition.
Mm-hmm.
Spatial intelligence, you know.
Yeah. But I also think that it just feels like it comes internally from somebody, right? Like
it's just a form of expressing. It's expressing whatever is in, you know, this essentially the soul, right? That is.
And I don't know. It's interesting. Anyway, the other question that I was going to ask you is, have you watched Los Angeles Plays itself and all that? So, because it seems like you're also very, I mean, not that you grew up in LA, you grew up in Orange County, but it seems like part of your, like what you sought after was what was accessible to you. You know, like I had access to things that were, you know, civically funded because I lived in a city where that was happening. You live in a city where film is made, and that ability to see, and now you're a photographer, right? So like I feel like there's an interesting, like, how would your sensitivities might have existed if we switched places? You know, like that's an interesting question, I think, in terms of the idea of because your work is very Los Angeles based, right? Like in the sense that you're using a lot of, I mean, you're photographing, right? So, and then you're using that within that. My ideas are a little bit more international or less like focused on a place and on a sense of belonging. You know, I'm almost jealous of that. Like I feel like as someone that's not from LA, I do feel like I was telling you about like how I long for the ocean, you know, like being from a place is a very specific thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, that question you asked earlier about like, oh, there was somebody somewhere, you know, like in the canon of art, you know, I think about, I remember, I mean, there's so many photographers that I learned about, but I think seeing, because I've also never left Southern California. It's not just LA based, it's Southern California based work. When I saw the new Topographics,
what's that?
That was a movement that of photographers in Southern California that were, you know, they were making images of Southern California developing in like Irvine area, other areas too, and parts of the country, but they were photographing like developments as the country was expanding and growing. These suburbs were like growing. So it's basically landscape photography. Or, you know, Louis Baltz here in Irvine really specifically was photographing like the warehouses that were, you know, they were in a really, you know, what people would consider kind of bland ways, like very straight photography. But I think I was so gravitated to their formality. Like, you know, it's really activated when I see like, you know, structure, and what lies behind it, and why are things getting built, and why are they built in this way, and
Are you saying structure in the sense that you're like more more interested in, like less interested in Dutch angles kind of thing, or would that also be included in the structure? Like when you're saying formal, I'm like, it's been a while, so I've lost 20 of the photographers I used to have in my head. But you know, like who's the guy that photographed the Germans? The August Sander. Yeah. So like that's formal, right? Is that, are we talking about like head on, or what would it, or I just want to get like a visual sense. I mean, I've seen your work obviously, but
yeah, when I talk about formality, it's like, you know, images that really lean on, you know, the geometric, on controlled tonality of grays or color, contrast, shape.
Okay.
You know, line, like the use of these visual tools in a very apparent way.
Okay.
A very controlled way.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Not like maybe less candid kind of shooting.
Yeah. But I think it was more about seeing this region represented that was like, oh, that's what it looked like. Yeah. There's a history here that I don't understand or know because I know it in this way.
Yeah.
So I started making images of what I was seeing, you know, in just suburban landscapes. I would walk a lot. I would ride my rollerblades because I didn't drive in Orange County.
Is that hard to do? Not drive in Orange County?
Yeah, it's really hard because the bus system is like it's kind of gnarly. Like, you know, sometimes they go by every hour. And if you miss it, you're... So,
thank you for censoring that.
Yes. I was like, wait, I don't know.
You can, but it's just, I mean, if it ends up in the first 30 seconds of the show as a clip, I'll.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So.
Sorry, did I derail you?
No. Well, yeah, but.
I do. We're talking about formality.
Yeah. But it's like documenting what I was seeing, right? So, you know, and I reached a point in my undergrad experience when I got this really gnarly question about like, why was I making these images, by a professor who I really admired and I really looked up to. And it kind of took me, like, she asked, like, why are you making these images? Like, they've already been done before, you know? And that was a moment that will never like leave me because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know. So it really made me sit down and think like, why am I making these images? Like, you can't stop making them. You know, there's these like subtle, you know, these, for me, unconscious gestures that people are making in their yards all the time. Like it's really funny if I describe to people what I'm photographing. It's like, I photograph trees and houses and like the sidewalk, you know, but it sounds like nothing, but there's so much there that gets embedded into how people control these very limited spaces that they have access to. You know, it's like a lot of anxiety gets manifested there. A lot of joy gets manifested there that to me becomes representative of a class, which is not what the new topographics were doing. So having that question thrown at me really made me think about, okay, so what are these photographs even doing? Like, they're not doing what I want them to do. How can I activate that? So I turned to scale and installation and space and activating those things.
So that's what made you that question is what led to because that's what I was trying to get to, you know.
Yeah.
With my questioning, I like, because at a certain point you stop doing just the photography, and you kind of become it's like you contextual. I mean, I'm just repeating what you say. You contextualize, contextualizing the imagery, but the materiality changes it, and it no longer just lives in the realm of photography. Even though it is photographic and all of that. So it's an interesting move into like out of that. Like I can relate a little bit to it because I love photography, and also I stopped taking pictures once digital happened because I had that problem of like, oh, this is meaningless, you know.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, I can fixate on the framing. Those were the first few things. I also had a shitty camera, but and then I never followed up. But but it's interesting, like that discipline of photography, the formality and all of that stuff and what it can contain. But it's interesting to see it kind of like I said, be reflected in the space, right? It still has, it's like, I just kind of abandoned photography, you know? And I was like, okay, I like the things I learned from photography, but you kind of are trying to expand on it in this, even though it leaves the realm of photography, it's still photographic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting detail about the way that you're working. 'Cause honestly, I don't even remember that many of your photographs. I mostly remember the installation shots, you know, and I've looked through I mean, it depends on what you've posted on your Instagram feed, but I think it goes to what you were saying. How do you make people look at the photograph when you're bombarded with it, right? Like it does just kind of become digital noise in your head, you know, when you're, it's almost like image. This one matters. Remember this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that your images aren't memorable, but the way you're presenting them, I think, does kind of fulfill that need that you had to sort of slow people down and make people like, you know, it's almost like you're making me look at images in a different way by the way that you're presenting them on these materials, you know, especially the one with the bricks printed on the ground. But the recent one, that one, it's almost like it's like poetically referencing it, right?
You're talking about the shingles.
The shingles, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, directly is referencing. That's what they're based on, you know?
No,
so
yeah.
They are kind of, yeah, they are, even though they're sculptures, there's no photographic element. To me, they are still the stills, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And clocking that movement, you know? There's a question of like, where did that come from? What is this?
Yeah.
But also like, what is the source of that action? It's somebody's labor.
Yeah.
Somebody's body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're getting it while it's in motion before it's settled in and it becomes part of the scenery.
Yeah, I mean those falls happened in like a second.
Yeah.
You know, and it was only through that technology, the tool of the camera, that I was able to slow down and really see the unraveling of a moment.
Were you how many did you shoot it? Did you say it was a video?
It was a video.
Okay,
I just shot it on my phone.
On your phone.
Because I mean, I couldn't photograph it. I mean, I guess I could have, but you know, it was like, for me, it was like really pretty vital to capture the whole motion.
Yeah.
It was so repetitive. These people were, you know, these laborers were doing, you know, this work and just throwing these shingles off the roof very quickly, you know. So it was a moment to document.
Have you ever left LA or the Southern California area?
Like living or traveling?
Well, living.
No. I've only ever lived in Southern California.
I mean, I assume you could travel, like, especially as an artist, sometimes people do residencies and stuff.
I've never done a residency.
Really? Have you ever left LA? Or I keep saying LA, but I as a shorthand, I apologize. Southern California? Like for travel?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like,
yes. Yeah, I like, you know, I've traveled to Mexico a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Because my family's from there. I did overseas when I was in a community college. My first body of work was this series of large format photographs I made in Cambridge in England when I was still a literature major.
Wow.
So to study over this one summer. You know, and I've traveled
it's just interesting. It would be interesting to see, like, the other thing, you talk about the diversity of architecture, and I think that maybe people that are not living in LA don't know what we mean, but like, because for me, the suburbs was 3 houses that, like you would go to your friend's house and you'd be like, oh, this is my house. It's the same layout, right? Yeah. Whereas I think that these suburbs are so old. So for me, when I forget the guy's name, but there was a guy, my memory of photographers is so bad, but it was a guy that would photograph black and white tract houses in Colorado. Really famous guy. I'm sure I'm sure it'll come to you. But that really resonated with me because of the neighborhoods that I was, because like Florida was still booming, and then at the time, like they were building, it wasn't like all that brickle, all that like verticality, that like it was very limited. It kind of happened like 15 years ago, maybe even a little longer ago. Mm-hmm. But I left in 2008. Yeah, no, so like 15 years ago. But it's also interesting to see just like when you come out here, when I first came out here, I had never seen so many little downtowns that have their own little skyscrapers, that's how fucking massive this city is. You have the downtown area, you have, what's it called? Wilshire, like it has Mid Wilshire. You have
Miracle Mile.
Mile. You have, Culver City has its own little thing, and like you're like, oh my god, it's all these like cities that just bled into each other and kind of touch. It's that old. It's like the years of people living in these houses is significant. And I mean, where do you put new construction in LA? You have to tear something down at this point, right? It's a very, very, I just kind of want people that are not from here listening to this to have a sense of like how specific, and like your work really addresses sort of like the LA-ness of LA, right? Like in a very sincere, people are always talking about LA is so fake and all of this shit, and they're talking about celebrities, right? But like you're documenting the lived in LA, right? Like, that's a class that sits on top, and all of that. But I feel like I'm glazing you a little bit, but like, I'm really happy to have you on the show. And I'm really impressed with the work, and having seen it from afar, it's like, it really is. So, I mean, I know that there's a lot of like artists now that are making work that is very much about, and I keep saying LA again, I apologize, but there's a lot, there are a lot of artists right now getting into spaces and getting into galleries that are documenting that, but your work doesn't look anything like that. And it's so, and I think that that's the photographic element of it, right? Since you're not a painter, since you're not doing all of these things, the image embeds itself with, and there's like there's a truth to that there, because there's so many images within Los Angeles. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Have you ever been to Italy?
I was going to this summer. I wanted to take my parents. So we've never really traveled together. My parents and my partner. But then my dog got sick. I was like, oh, I can't. Nobody can leave ever again.
I just want to. I'm fascinated to your sensitivity there, because it's such a. I love LA. I'm not bashing on LA, but one time I was in a cab. So a cab driver told me, like he was an Italian guy. He's like, I've been to Paris. Fuck Paris. Rome is the city. And ever since then, I've kind of like just bit his opinion and adopted it for myself. But I've been to Paris, and it's just, it is the closest thing to kind of LA, in that like it's a city that just feels so lived in, like, and like generations, so deep in the history, which is why I asked you about Italy and not Miami. 'Cause like, I think Miami would be a little bit less, unless you go to the beach, it would just be like, oh, these are young suburbs, you know? Whereas like, and like everything still feels kind of manicured. Whereas over here, this like the potholes, the infrastructure is kind of, you know, that's another issue. What do you mean when you say specifically class? Like, what class are you talking about? You know, like, I obviously know the answer, but tell me a little bit more about that. Like when you're trying to document it, because you're not the vernacular you're using, the language that you're using addresses that. But tell me a little bit more, or just tell me your thoughts on class and how you see it having grown up in LA.
I mean, what I'm interested in when I say class, I mean the working class, right? Because we have the ruling class, and then we have the working class, and people who own, and the people who the have-nots, right? Because if you don't own your home, you're so susceptible to markets, to changes that are beyond your control. Look what's happening to our country in terms of affordability. Housing, the thing that everybody should have, is we are starved for it. And, you know, and wages are not rising.
No, they're not.
You know, and the rich are getting richer.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they're also making it incredibly hard to own property anymore, you know, because like people are, and it's documented in Florida, people have abandoned homes because they can't pay all of this like fire stuff in LA probably isn't helping.
It made it even harder.
Yeah.
Even harder for renting.
Yeah.
You know, in LA. It's saturated the west side.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like the house, you know, it's like that's where people went to, but then I mean, it's really hard because all these things are related.
No, and it seems
housing, like wages also.
And it seems like it's related to some stuff we said we weren't going to talk about.
Oh,
so I'm going to try to find a way to redirect us because I have a couple more things that I wanted to ask you. But I'm like, oh man, I fucked up. I tiptoed. I can see you getting upset, and I'm sorry for that. That's a bad host. What do you think? How long? So you graduated in May, you said, right?
Yeah.
And you've been at it since before to that 2021. Yeah. So you've been at it for a while. But it sounds like you have community before you went to grad school, right? Like of artists and stuff. Where did you go to undergrad?
Well, I spent the most amount of time in my community college, which is where, you know, I really fostered my best friends.
What college was that?
Orange Coast College.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's where I studied photography, and it's the golden years of my education.
It's a nice campus, man. And what's their mascot?
A pirate.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was like, oh, because it's on the coast. That's amazing.
But they had, you know, it breaks my heart that they, you know, torn down all these beautiful Neutra buildings. But there was some, you know, that's what the campus were these mid-century modern buildings that, you know, they had spent so much fucking money. Sorry.
You are allowed.
Oh, you were allowed. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
This is money, you know, buildings. But anyway, they're sterile and just awful to feel. Okay. But you know, when I transferred, I went to UCLA.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's where you like that makes sense though. A community college is a different environment than art school.
Yeah, community colleges. I mean, it's where I got all the skills I needed to make the art I make today. You know, the universities are great for conceptual development. That's
a really good analysis.
So, but there's time, I guess, to be thinking through ideas and figuring out conceptually what you want to do and starting to put words to it, which is important too. It's a different part of being an artist.
Yeah.
And, you know, I studied with amazing, I blows my mind when I think about those years. Like, I can't believe I was studying with these people, these professors, these educators that were pushing the boundaries of what you could do, asking the most difficult questions.
Were you in like, was it? It seems like the photographic department, the photography department was.
Well, it's a really interdisciplinary program, which was, I think I took UCLA. I took maybe 2 photography classes, but I was so invested in sculpture, new genres, these other areas, and even ceramics, these other areas, because I wanted to study with specific people.
Okay, so you kind of, so that's interesting. I mean, it makes sense. Like the I don't want to badmouth my program like too harshly, but I've heard that it like the vision has changed. Like that department head has gone like, is like a art historian that's really into like Renaissance and stuff like that. When I was there, it was like super conceptual, like really aggressively so. And I feel like it never had an identity, so I almost like am jealous of the people, because my experience in college was so bad. Once I left community college, it was like it was in that conceptual realm where I felt like, I've heard other people say it, but like the idea of like tearing you down to build you back up. You know what I mean? Like, there's a way to do that, but there's like also, it seems like you had gentle people.
I had really critical people.
Critical is one thing. Personally, but I found it hard. I mean, I'm talking about it, my experience. Tell me about yours.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hear that all the time, which is really annoying to me as an educator, because that's not the point of education.
Yeah.
That's not how it needs to be, or it's not fruitful. Yeah. It's like that's not about tearing people down. It shouldn't be that. It really is about questioning, like, what are you seeing, and why do you think that's what you're seeing?
Yeah.
And really really dismantling how people are making meaning. How do you make meaning?
Yeah.
And what tools do you have? What don't you have yet? What do you have to say? Why does it matter?
Yeah.
Does it have to matter? People are looking at it. Yeah. You're asking people to look at it. So, those
weren't the problems.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are like, I think that like I had a good experience and I learned a lot from just the general idea of criticality and critical thinking. And I honestly think that like I can tell if people have been to a critical program, just kind of how they think about the world, right? Like, I think that, not to go back to what we were talking about, but I think that you are very analytical and critical about societal culture and societal situations and the politics of LA, which get completely buried and nobody knows about, I also know artists that don't have that criticality of like societal, analytical way of looking at the world. So it's interesting, like through doing the podcast, one of the things I've realized is how varied education is. And from what I understand, I had Amir Zaki tell me that like he doesn't even do critiques anymore because the kids can't really take it. And he does one-on-ones, and it's just a different format instead of having a bunch of peers judge each other, because he was saying that it ends up being like a "you got this, you go girl," kind of vibe.
Yeah, but that's when I go as the professor, and I'm like, well, no, let's actually talk about like what does that even mean? What is good? It's like, and I push back because it's people need to hear.
No, I'm with you. Yeah.
How things are being read.
No, and that's what that is where my education was good.
Yeah.
I definitely, the criticality, I did a lot of, one of the biggest programs for me was, or the classes that I took was the history of photography, both sections of it, because it really was an education on images, not image making, no thinking about making an image. It's just completely separate consumption and learning how to read them. And I go ahead.
Oh yeah, and reading them in the time that they're being made.
Yeah.
Because it reflects the culture of the time. And then also you get to do it for the present moment. What does it mean to go back into history and analyze that with all of that time between. They mean different things.
But I think that helped me understand photography better than taking pictures.
Sure.
Because what happened to me was I was frustrated with how subpar I felt. And like for you, it was the actual tool. For me, it was like, oh no, I love this tool so much, but it's not the one, you know. But the tool itself taught me about limitations, and that's when I started to really get into like other elements, you know. And I've always been a fan of drawing, so that's kind of like where I'm at now. But
is that the tool, drawing? Drawing
is the tool, yeah. And that's why I don't care if people are like, your work is so graphic. I'm like, yeah. It's drawing. Like I'm just gonna make what I want, and if no one likes it, that's fine, you know. But I do have people over to kind of rip me. That's one of the nice things about doing this show. I can be like, hey, let's do a studio visit, and I'll get like really good feedback, you know.
I mean, that's really funny because it's like, well, yeah, it is graphic. And you know, it's kind of like
that's the language.
I said, like formal. Yeah, it's like they're really formal. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And what does that mean? And where is that language coming from? And how are you changing it? Right?
Yeah. I've had people call it op art. I'm like, yeah, that's totally fine. Like I am within that context right now. Like it is a period that is kind of looked down upon, you know.
I love op art.
I know,
but I collect with my husband.
Oh, really? Yeah. Nice. But well, now I feel good. But no, like I think that it's like, yeah, but I'm doing it now. So is it modernist still, you know? Or I mean, not that it's modernist, but you know what I'm saying? Like, just because I'm going back and dealing and like trying to explore some shit from back in the day doesn't mean that like it's like I said this at a talk that I did recently, or at a artist talk, that like it's almost like you can't be a modernist anymore because the context has completely changed. You can work in a modernist methodology, but it exists in a world where postmodernism exists, and so by nature it's material. It's all the dialogue has changed, so its materiality is still going to be. It is a decision to just make a painting on a canvas, you know. Does that make sense? Agree, disagree? You can push back.
No, I mean, I think I think you're allowed to use methods and languages from the past.
But do you think that you could be like a modernist painter? Like, is that we talked a little bit before we started recording about how quaint the terminology of fine art is, right? I said, okay, boomer was my, like, I think that like, it really is hard to just like, I think that like then you get into conversations of high and low art, and isn't that kind of a thing that we're kind of getting away from, right? Does that make sense? I'm more than happy if you would disagree with me for you to push back. Analyze what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really thinking like, what are exactly what are like. Can you elaborate a little bit on
like, I think, like,
it sounds like you feel like it's not like somehow the way you're approaching the drawing or like
oh, I'm not talking specifically about my work. I'm just saying in general to be like, I don't think that my work is modernist. I think it's graphic, right? But what I'm saying is that like, I guess what I'm hinting at is the idea of being a modernist is almost like saying your art is subpar because it's not relevant to the times, right? Like it's antiquated. Is anachronism the right word? Like it no longer, you're making a decision to work within a tradition, right? but that's a decision still in and of itself.
Yeah.
So if you're like doing Rembrandt based painting, right? Like you're still referencing Rembrandt. You're the tradition of painting, like even the tradition of painting with what happened with Clement Greenberg and what's it called? Like the discussion of the materiality of it still exists. The conversation's been had. So to say that like you're making modernist art, I feel like you could be inspired by modernism, but I think within the contemporary time, it's almost impossible to be like a full modernist without sort of like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about my work. I'm like, well, yeah, my work is in that tradition, but it's speaking to the present moment.
Exactly.
Right. It's like it's just reacting to this moment, but also because that visual language is something that really appeals to me and I find really powerful. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, or like looking back into history. And because you're even when I think about like, oh yeah, my influences, they had influence, it's like they had influences, they studied with these people, and there's a lineage that you're working in that is really rich. And I derive a lot of sort of like pride and pleasure from that too, like thinking like, oh yeah, like these artists, like their artworks like blew my mind.
Yeah.
And you can see it in my work, not maybe too directly. Like
I have a hard time placing who your influences are. That's why I asked so directly about it. No, yeah, I think go ahead.
Yeah, I think if you look at like Gordon Motta Clark's work, you'll be like, you could see you can see that I am reacting to this work.
Yeah.
I studied with Barbara Kruger, and she made a huge impact on me.
Yeah.
And the language of understanding space, like, this thing that I carried with me of being a woman and being a person of color, going into these cities that I did not belong in. Like, there's a lot of sort of violence that you sort of feel, and just like there's so much power in that. And I know a lot of people also experience that. So that's where leaning into figuring out how to activate that, or how to use that as the underlying meaning of the work, even unconsciously, because I really, psychoanalysis is another school of thought that I care so much about. These things influence so powerfully.
Yeah. I think that, I guess, I agree. And I think that to rephrase what I said in a different way, I think, I lost it and I'm not that worried about getting it back. But I think that like, you can't unlearn postmodernism. And if you're referencing something from the past, you're bringing it into the future and you're saying it's still relevant. So if there's a tradition that's still relevant, and if it's still relevant because it sells, it's still relevant. You're no longer working in postmodernism or in modernism just because you work in a certain modality. You exist. And does that make sense? Like if something is completely irrelevant and dated, so I just think it's an interesting conversation. And I'm also, sometimes I just bounce things off of people, and you are very thoughtful. Like in the way that you answer your questions, like there's like I don't think you've said many ums or likes, and I picked up on that. Like so I can tell that you teach and that you are interested in this critical analysis. Where do you think education is now within the critique thing? Because I brought up what someone else was saying, and he was saying, like just the format of critique. Like I know he still gives them criticism, but it seems like you have a different approach.
There's a way to give feedback and I love critique because I can critique anything. I can critique your shoes. I can critique that mug over there. Like I can give critique on this room. It's just, and all that critique is responding to what is in front of you and expressing how is this functioning?
And it's not even,
and it doesn't have to be like I never do the you should. It's always like, oh, this is, I'm just responding to what's in front of me.
Yeah.
I can
and that's
analyze. You can analyze
skill.
anything.
It's a very difficult skill. And even though I had a hard time with some of my teachers, it's one that I'm glad that I learned. I don't reject the practice of critique. And I think the critique has become kind of a negative connotation. Like just societally, it's like be nice to people has kind of gone a little bit overboard in some areas. In other areas, not so much. But, like, I don't want to make a general statement that doesn't acknowledge how difficult life is right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that that's an interesting thing that we can probably just end there so that we don't talk more about education, because we all have jobs and I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But it's an interesting discussion that I'll talk to you more off air, because it seems like you have.
But it's important, it's
really
important
is.
for people, the adults, for all of us, to myself too. I'm always learning in my classroom. It's not like I'm, I'm the holder of the knowledge. I open my classes up telling them like I have as much to learn from you with your life experiences, and then hearing how people around you are reacting to what you've made is so critical.
Yeah. And like what people see that you don't see. One of the things that I was in the history of photography class, I learned that I was good at writing because I could write about what was in the picture, and I would write about William Eggleston and all of this shit. And it was really fun because it's really fucking easy. That was my favorite. Like, I don't even understand why people plagiarize shit, because all you have to do is attribute and you don't even have to write a paper. It's like, it's the easy. When I hear about fucking rich people, like successful people that get busted on that shit, I'm like, what an asshole. Like, it is but what it is that they don't want to read the shit. You have to write a good research paper, you have to read the shit. You and maybe like suggest an idea or even reference and be like, this person says this. You literally do not have to have an original thought.
Yeah, that's what historiography is.
Exactly.
Is like, how have other people, scholars, thought about this thing?
Yeah.
And then it's just the practice of literally just like figuring out how people have analyzed something. And then where are the holes? How do they relate? How do they not? What are the disagreements? What are the agreements? And
But I think that is also a very dangerous, societally, it's a very dangerous skill to teach, because you are very aware of the local, of the way things are going, and it's an interesting thing to see so many people that have art educations that either are ambivalent, don't care, or like, it gets really dark. Okay, so anything that I didn't ask you about that you want to get out? I know in the heat of the conversation, it can feel like it goes by fast. We're at like 1 hour and 13.
Oh, okay, cool.
You don't have to. I usually ask this question just in case somebody remembers something they wanted to say earlier, or has an answer to a question that I asked earlier and forgot to give, but you don't have to. Yeah. You can say, I'm satiated.
I'm pretty satiated, but shout out to Dakota and Chris.
Yeah.
Velasco, and also other folks, friends. Because really, I just have to say that I couldn't have, where I'm at right now in my career really has been like a word of mouth thing. And also obviously the work, because that's what I care about the most is like,
no, your work is
just
good.
The work. I just want the work to be exactly what I want it to be. And I don't pay attention to everything else.
We're both very lucky to know those two people, because your work is standout, and those are the people that are supportive of me. I went to see Chris his show in at Rhett Baruch Gallery, who's also really cool. And yeah, man, every time that guy talks to me, he talks to me like I'm somebody. It's really
Reyes?
Yeah, Reyes.
Yeah, he's
like, and I think that's just how he is. He talks to people like they're people, and same thing with Dakota. Like, trust me, we both know that in this art world, especially meeting people like this, like, you'd be surprised how often people are just angry at you and you're like promoting them, and you're like, I didn't work hard enough. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry you're bummed that I didn't do it.
I always shout out my friends who, you know, that's what the point of all this is like helping each other out. And like, you can't get anywhere by yourself if you know,
well, Dakota,
there's no built-in connections. You have to help each other. And you know, Velasco too.
Dakota and Velasco are both good homies, and I mean, I got a show at OCC at your favorite place to be for like to promote the podcast. I mean, like these are the kind of people we're talking with. So I just want to say that it's not just you saying that. Like these are legit people. Shout out to all three. And then anything that we can promote, any shows coming up, anything that you like. What's your Instagram?
My Instagram is caminadas.
Caminadas
means walks in Spanish because it's a really important part of my practice. You know, my solo show Through the Descent, like the return, is still up at the Institute of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles through August 31st. So if you want to check that out before I go deinstall it with my dad, feel free to.
Is that a performance thing?
No, it's just close. No, we don't. But it is. It's a lot of labor, which is performing labor, just part of the work.
Are you paying him?
Yeah, I pay my dad.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, most of the artist fee went to my dad, actually.
Awesome. I didn't mean to. That question came out more hostile than I intended it to.
No, that's a great question. That is part of the work. Who does the lifting around here? You know what I mean? Like,
I'm stuck somewhere between being an art critic. I mean, I'm not an art critic at all. I'm stuck somewhere between doing PR for you and then asking questions. So sometimes, so that question was like, it was lucky that it was good.
Great question. And then there's I don't know if this will be out in time, but Robert's projects have a work up in the group show, Back to the Earth. I think it's up through August 9th. They might extend it a week.
Okay.
Is what I heard last week. So that is a new work that I made. It's the newest piece I've created called Casting, and it's related to the museum show. And then, you know, things are coming in the future.
Cool.
Working on things. So thank you so much for having me. Love the podcast.
I really appreciate it. And I mean, you're a great get, especially like, cause I know the people you're with, that you surround yourself with. I see the work that you've been doing. I mean, you know, it's a pleasure when I meet somebody who I think really cares about the work, really has thoughtful things to say. And like, I mean, as a tourist in this part of the world, like what a privilege to talk to somebody that can break things down for me the way that you can, you know, like I see LA, but I don't see LA, you know,
you gotta walk LA.
You gotta walk LA, and that's not always fun as an adult, but no, yeah, it is fun. I love walking this neighborhood. But it's also like, I mean, I could have just spent an hour talking to you about how much it's changed, you know, especially as somebody that's been sensitive to it all changing, you know, like it is as massive and as impressive a city as Rome, and give it like another 2000 whatever years. Or actually, it's, I guess it like Rome goes past Christ, so give it another 4,000 years. It just got a late start. It'll be as crazy, you know. Who's gonna be living here?
I don't know. I'm just gonna be around. Sorry, it's so doom and gloom.
All right, I didn't mean to end it on a bummer, but just to remind you that progress is happening and we can't stop it. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, and then thank you guys for watching. It's always a pleasure to do this, and I really appreciate everybody's support. You guys can support us by liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting down below. Any thoughts on my modernist theory? You can push back on that. Just be nice. We can have a critical dialogue without being mean, but I definitely want to hear what people have to say about my stance on you can't be a modernist anymore. I think it's just an interesting thought. It's more of a thought experiment, and maybe someone will debunk me, and I'll be like, "Oh shit, I'm embarrassed I said that." But and then shout out to the patrons that support the show. It does add up. Like every now and then, I'll check in, and I'll be like, "Oh, thank God for them." So if you guys want to be a patron, go to patreon.com/what'smythesis, and thanks. See you guys. Oh yeah, I have a sign off. And I'll be back next week with another guest and another topic that may or may not be art related.